Hey, good morning. This is Dave Reinbold, the Executive Director of Ohio Partners for Affordable Energy, and like to welcome you back to Dialogue with Dave. And as a part of this series, we're reaching out to colleagues who run nonprofits around Ohio that help improve civic discourse, bring assistance to our members in the attempt to try to benefit our democracy. Fair enough?
Maybe.
Hey, I'd like to welcome Jen Miller, who's the head of the League of Women Voters of Ohio, and obviously has been very busy lately. But Jen, let's give the folks a little background. How did you get to the League of Women Voters? Because I know we've known one another through several jobs.
Yeah, so I previously was with the Sierra Club, Ohio chapter, and also the National Sierra Club. And I think that once you are really looking at the issues that affect our environment, affect our families, our economy, you realize that democracy needs friends, right? Democracy needs defenders who are just there to try to advocate for every voter in the state and for a democracy that serves us. And so that's what really brought me over to the league. And I've been here now for a couple years.
Oh, great. Great. I mean, the league has been OPE has been involved with the league off and on for its entire existence. The league always had a presence on energy issues. In it for many years, had one volunteer who was particularly adept and knowledgeable about energy issues. And so, we've seen support for the low income work we do over the years. But my listeners know a lot about what we do. So as the League of Women Voters, and as somebody who I've heard on numerous talk shows on NPR during this election season, can you give us a little wrap up? How did the election ultimately go in Ohio? Did we serve democracy in Ohio?
Absolutely. I think that given all of the challenges of 2020, we had a strong, well-functioning election. Let's keep in mind that we do have some things in Ohio that make things a little bit easier. We have 3 different ways that you can vote: early vote, no excuse absentee, or on election day. We also have really strong security protocols that have actually gotten stronger under Secretary LaRose. And so those pieces worked really, really well. You know, our absentee system really relies a lot on the US mail service, but it was developed at a time when the US mail service was far more efficient than it is today. And so I do hope that we will continue to work to improve absentee voting.
I thought the single drop box per county was just kind of a silly thing. I mean, people need to be able to go, especially if you're in an urban area, right? To have to go downtown to the Board of Elections just seems to make no sense. And in some of the more rural counties,
I'm kind of a small town girl, so I think about the urban areas, but I also think about the rural areas. And I just think it's fundamentally, it's not equal access. I also would say the same thing about early voting. We saw, early voting so popular in all the counties, and we had counties, rural and urban, that had long lines, right? And long lines even during the day of a weekday. We typically see long lines on the weekends, but we saw long lines throughout the entire early voting cycle. It makes the argument that we should be able to have multiple early vote centers as well. And my job at the league is to be thinking about people with disabilities, people who rely on transit, people who may not have that stamp. All of the folks, students who during this election may have registered at one address, but then wasn't even able to be at school. So it's my job to be thinking about those voters and advocating for those voters for that access, because democracy functions best when we all get to participate.
But I need to move to the issue that we're all confronting now. And that's the the questioning that's gone on nationally on the efficacy of our voting system.
I think sometimes, Dave, it is hard for partisan people to imagine folks really taking heart to a nonpartisan mission. So this is something that, like actually boards of elections, the chief elections officer, it's possible to put aside your party beliefs and just function for the benefit of everyone and democracy and voters and really have that North Star. I think sometimes, especially as we are in such strong partisan divides today, it can be hard for folks to imagine that. But I do trust that to be the case, especially at that local level, which is where the rubber meets the road. All of these recounts, that's great. You should know that leagues across the country have advocated not just for these bipartisan protocols, but also the recount protocols, the auditing protocols. What people don't understand is that there's safety rails along the entire voting process. Actually, the fact that it's a little bit decentralized and that you do have local boards plus a state board plus federal, that you have these different levels of oversight and safety rails. And then also keep in mind that voter advocates are watching everything. And if we really think that voter rights are being violated, or if counts are incorrect, which certainly is a violation of voting rights, then we would be intervening in these cases as well.
Well, I've been struck by the professionalism of the state people, of the managers of votes, both at the county level and at the state level, that I've seen interviewed on TV. I mean, these people are really committed to doing a good job. I was actually quite impressed. I mean, they take great pride in delivering an unbiased product, an even-handed count. I see people who have an esprit de corps about what they do and a commitment to what they do, just like we have in my agencies, and it was impressive to see those people.
I think that the first thing we need to do is just help voters understand, again, all the guardrails that are there to protect this system. I think we need to make visible all the folks who lean in, and even really democracy at work, where we often disagree with those implementing the policies or making the policies and what needs to happen. But on election day, we are all hands on deck doing everything we can to serve voters. But I also think we need to look at some of the other challenges in our democracy that have gotten us to this point, right? So I definitely think gerrymandering and money in politics are actually two issues that continue to polarize our political atmosphere and create frustration and distrust for voters. Gerrymandering builds upon itself, right? So a gerrymandered map makes a more gerrymandered map, makes a more gerrymandered map. So that's point one. Point two is the more gerrymandering that happens, the more partisan it gets. There's scholars who have actually watched the floor votes of all the different issues that we can think of that are just hard, right? From education funding to environmental protection to gun safety, whatever it is. And through the years, as we have become more gerrymandered, there's less and less overlap between the floor votes of the two parties on any given issue. And so it becomes more partisan, and at the same time, voter frustration increases. More fair maps should mean better services for the constituents you care the most about. Because when we have some real competition, some districts will continue to say solidly Republican, some will continue to say solidly Democrat. But once we have more play in those seats, it really does require lawmakers and legislative caucuses to listen to the needs of constituents and to really look at to really investigate issues deeply, because there's accountability that comes if someone might lose their seat, right? So
Sure.
let's keep in mind that in 2015 and 2018, with the league and many others, we did bring some reforms to the people on the ballot. Those passed in all 88 counties, almost 72% in 2015, which was to make state house map making more fair. And then in 2018 for congressional maps, and that passed by almost 75% of the voters. But at the end of the day, we will absolutely need everyone leaning in and making sure that they're communicating to their lawmakers that we expect the map making process to uphold not just the letter of those reforms, but the spirit. And the spirit was, we were going to give democracy a fighting chance by having maps that were more fair and representative of the people.
Well, I think we'll have to ask you back, Jen, when that process begins, to make sure we energize our network to get them involved.
Oh, that would be great. It would be so.
Because we're in all 88 counties too.
I know you
are. Well, I want to thank Jen Miller with the League of Women Voters in Ohio for joining us today. You just finished a real exciting season, but it sounds like there's more to come. So I want to thank you for helping us out today.
Thank you, Dave, for all you do to make Ohio a better place to live and work and vote.
Take care now.